There are two things that are guaranteed in life: birth and death. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing the entire history of death, which was actually voted for by you as my community tab, so thank you hens, thanks for voting, thanks for choosing, means a lot, cheers. We know The Sims is super realistic and we all love realistic things. This is proven by the sheer amount of must-have realistic mod videos that I've done, so you can go check them out if you want. And The Sims thankfully has given us that realism with death, but they've also added some fun to it, which I actually really enjoy. Like, I love a little bit of fun, you know, life ain't that serious, love out like that. And the Sims community is also a very fun bunch and very creative. And we've all experimented with death in some form in The Sims, whether it's positive or negative. And it's not always for the nicest reasons, but we have fun. And just a little anecdote for you. When I was a kid, my sister came storming home. She'd been playing out with a friend and she'd fall out with said friend. Her way to vent her emotions were to make a sim of her friend and put him in a 1-by-1 room. And just wait till they die. And to this day, my sister still can't control her emotions that well. So thankfully, she hasn't killed anyone in real life yet. So we're going to start our journey through death with The Sims 1, jumping straight in because this is going to be a very long video. And if anyone hasn't actually played The Sims 1, it was really hard to keep your Sims alive in this game. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. Harder than my master's degree. If I haven't already mentioned, I'm doing a master's degree. It's nearly complete. I finished on the 6th. The Sims 1 is basically The Sims 4 on hard mode. And the main cause of death for me personally was fire. Oh, the fire in this game was deadly. I'm not even exaggerating. It had no mercy. It discriminated against no one. Everybody was equal in the eyes of fire. You know how they say love is blind? Well, fire was blind in The Sims 1. If your Sim was in a fire, they would most likely die. It was honestly ravenous. And fires would also happen quite often, so you're starting a new game with a Sim, you better get them leveled up and cooking if they want to make a grilled cheese, otherwise your little whole house is going to burn down to the ground. I'm just sat here tittering to myself. Let's all never forget the time that the Sims team tried to do a Sims 1 live stream and the Sims got burned down within like the first 5 minutes. To be honest, cooking without a cooking skill would most definitely burn your house down, so it's much better to have your Sims die of starvation than it is to actually try and cook something without the skill. So speaking of starvation, that is another way that your Sims can die in the original game. It is pretty self-explanatory. If you don't eat something, you will die. Keeping up with the realistic ways. Another way is death through electric. Keeping up with the I'm gonna quit. Keeping up with the realistic ways. Another way to die is through electrocution, and it is pretty realistic. So if your Sim doesn't have a high enough mechanical skill and they try and fix an electrical object, there is a chance of them dying from electrocution. And arguably, this is kind of a good thing. It's almost like a life lesson. It teaches your kids, if they're playing The Sims, to not mess about with electronics unless you know what you're doing. Do not mess about with the cooker. It's just nice of The Sims to try and defeat natural selection. And then the final realistic way, and probably the most infamous that The Sims is known for deaths, was dying without a pool ladder. So if your Sims was in the pool and you took away the ladder, bippity boppity boom, they were gone, they were gonna. But they could also just die this way from swimming too long. If their knees were already really low and then they went swimming, that'd be the last you seen of them. Goodbye. And we've all killed our Sims with a pool ladder. Hands up if you've ever targeted your Sims by removing the pool ladder. And honestly, it was just fun watching your Sims die purely for the crack. And in my opinion, the option for the Sims to get out of the pool without a pool ladder, I think this was introduced in The Sims 3, was one of the biggest mistakes that the Sims team has ever done. Like, I do not appreciate it. Now we move on to more fun ways to die, and honestly, that's quite a proper weird sentence, but go on with it. One way was through the skydiving simulator. I think this was introduced with The Sims Living Large. So if your Sim is using this whilst the needs are already quite far down low,
they will get pregnant and die.
Jesting, just jesting. Sims can't even get pregnant in The Sims 1, so Immaculate Conception or what. And then similar to The Sims 4, The Sims 1 has a rodent disease. It's from interacting with a diseased guinea pig. So if they catch this disease and it's not treated, they can die. But not only that, it can spread to other Sims as well. So you can have your little like guinea pig disease infestation. And I hope you've all got the NHS in The Sims 1 because that's some hefty bills that you're racking up. And then finally introduced with Making Magic, which is honestly the best expansion pack of all time. And if you want to report me on that one, I will happily fight it right here, right now. Death can occur when your Sims are turned into a toad through the toadification spell. If they're a toad, there's a possibility that they can either get eaten by a dragon or a cat. So how exciting. And if you haven't noticed, one death is actually missing here, and it's a death that's been a staple in all of the other games, and that's old age. And I completely forgot that Sims just didn't age in The Sims 1. I always thought that they did, and then I went back and played and I was like, Where's my age scale? It's not there. Your Sims can only age up if they're going from a baby to a child, and then that's it. Your Sims are just immortal forever. So from this, we move on to what happens when your Sim dies, and this is honestly a whole nother can of worms. There's so many parts in this video for each game. There's like dying, what happens when you die, is there a way to stop dying, how to get resurrected. There's so much stuff. So there is a chance that your Sim might not die. When your Sims do actually, you know, kick the bucket, they get a visit from the Grim Reaper. We absolutely love Death. He's an absolute angel. I stand him on my channel. Your Sim can plead for a loved one to survive, and it has numerous options. To be honest, it's quite in-depth. So if Death is just in a bit of a bad mood, his toys are out the bottom, he's having a bit of a paddy fit, your Sim's going to be dead regardless. There's nothing you can do. Just say your final goodbyes, have your peace with him. But if he's feeling a bit more generous, and Death is actually quite a good guy, so usually he is, you can have an ultimate battle of rock, paper, scissors. It's a kind of a win-win situation either way, because if you do win, then your Sim comes back unharmed, alive, and if they don't win, then your Sims come back as a zombie. And to be honest, Death is, like I've said, pretty generous. So his one job is to go places and collect dead people, and he usually just leaves them there and he's like, nah, you know what, have another go at life. But unfortunately, if Death isn't generous and your Sim just dies anyway, they do get a randomized gravestone, but it's still not the last time that you're going to see your Sim. If the gravestone is kept on the lot, the Sim can come back as a ghost in the wee hours of the morning and do what ghosts do, which is basically just haunt your Sims. But if your Sim's been made a zombie by Death, it's still not all lost. You've got the Sims Unleashed expansion pack. You can go into Old Town and visit Miss Lucille, and she'll turn your Sim back from a zombie to a normal person. There's a lot of options here, both dying and resurrecting. The only chance that your Sim's going to be 100% dead is if Death is just not having a good day. And I think Death is actually one of the coolest things in The Sims because it's so well thought out. It's not just boom, you're dead. And it improves a lot as well from The Sims 1 to The Sims 2. So speaking of which, let's move on to The Sims 2. So we still have all the basic ones like death by fire, drowning, electrocution, starvation. But babies, toddlers and children are exempt from starvation. If the hunger goes that far down, they do get taken away by the social worker. It's honestly a harrowing time. It's happened to me quite a lot. And since Sims can now age in The Sims 2, there is the option for old age, and this death state is exempt from pleading with the Grim Reaper. So if it's your time, honey, it's your time. And it's actually quite a comforting death, which sounds weird to come out of your mouth, like how can a death be comforting? But honestly, the little details in The Sims 2 are what make the game worth it, and I'm so glad that there's a resurgence lately of people highlighting out the good points, because when your Sim dies of old age, Grim Reaper doesn't just come, like he brings an entourage, either are, of Sims, and by that I mean there's 3 Sims, and they're in hula outfits, and they do a little hula dance for them. The old Sims come out with a little suitcase, and they're ready to depart this life with death, and it's kind of sad, but it's also kind of comforting, and I'm a bit emotional saying that because it kind of reminds me of the 3 brothers story from Harry Potter, where at the end, Death and the man part the life as equals. I like Harry Potter, if you couldn't tell. What you say? An added benefit of dying from old age in Sims 2 as well is when the Sim dies, they give the family inheritance, and oh my good God. As Honey Boo Boo says,
$1 makes me holler, Honey Boo Boo.
As for more creative ways to die, there's literally an abundance, and I mean an abundance. So Sims can also get ill in The Sims 2. Something that was kind of annoying, but then when it was taken away from me, I really miss it, to be honest. I think you can get ill in The Sims 3. I'm not too sure about The Sims 4. It's just not the same. It's not as deep. If you had a flu or cold in The Sims 2 and it was bad enough, it could literally go on to being pneumonia, and your Sim could die if it wasn't treated. This didn't happen that often, because if you got a cold, all you had to do was send them off to bed or eat some of Grandma's comforting soup, and then they'd be right on the mend. But the fact you could die from a cold, or the fact it was even cold, is pretty cool. There's also food poisoning, but I'm not sure if you can die of that. But you can also die from being crushed by a satellite, either if you're cloud gazing or if you're looking through the telescope on a night. Why was that so far down low? I don't know. Ooh. And I didn't know that this was a thing until I was just a wee innocent bairn playing The Sims 2, sent my Sims off to go cloud gaze, and boom! They got killed by a satellite, and I was not expecting it. And to be honest, I don't think I've ever cloud gazed in my life, and them 2 things might be connected. And ghosts can also kill your Sims. Not directly, but if your needs are low enough and then your Sim gets a fright by a ghost, your needs will drop even further, and then boom, you're dead. Death by flies as well is also a really interesting way to die, and it teaches you a good life lesson, to be honest, because in The Sims 2, if you left your food out long enough, I'm pretty sure it's the same for the other games, they start to get flies around them, but leave it even further and then flies will just become a big massive swarm and literally eat your Sim up. And you know what, like, good on The Sims for teaching life lessons. Kim and Aggie would have an absolute heart attack seeing the state of your Sim's house if it's got to the point of them dying by flies.
I'm so horrified
I don't know what to say. And then when The Sims 2 came out, the infamous cow plant was brought into the series. Oh god, love him. And this one's a special death because there's no pleading with death in this one, like the Grim Reaper. That's not an option. If you're killed by a cow plant, you're just killed. And it's that instant that the cow plant literally hands you your gravestone as he's eating you. So no discussion, just dead, over. And then similar to being killed by a ghost, there's also numerous other ways where if your needs are low enough, then something can kill you. Like peeking into a coffin, if you see a vampire, dying from hailstones, being stuck in a lift of all things, being struck by lightning. That's not even all of them. And then after death, things are pretty similar to The Sims 1. You can still plead with death and you still get a gravestone, but these are dependent on your lifetime aspiration, and if you've got really good points in that aspiration, you get a gold gravestone. So well, look at you, succeeding even in death. But there are also a plethora of ways that your Sims can get revived. And so many ways. My personal favourite is the Resurrectonometron. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I used to know what I'm talking about anyway, and there'll be a picture, so here you go, there it is. This was introduced in The Sims 2 University, which is a bit of a weird thing to introduce it with, but I'm not complaining. And it's basically a phone that you can ring up and ask for someone to be resurrected. The fee is 10,000 simoleons though, so that has an effect on their resurrection. So if you pay the full amount, your Sims come back as a normal human Sim, no harm done. But if you pay a small fee, then your Sims come back as a zombie. And to be honest, I really like the zombie, so I always made an effort just to pay less so I could have a zombie. Loved it. And zombies are actually quite prominent. With The Sims 2 free time, you can revive a Sim by using a genie in his lamp. And if it fails, your Sims come back as a zombie. And witches can also make Sims into zombies by casting a spell on the gravestone. So I think that this was all foreshadowing for the collaboration between The Sims and Plants vs Zombies. Can you remember when that was the thing about The Sims 2 Supernatural time? How bizarre. Going from Plants to Zombies to Moschino. Ghosts are also a part of The Sims 2 as well, just like The Sims 1. And each ghost has a different colour for how they died, which is pretty cool, pretty interesting. And they are just as mischievous as in The Sims 1 as well. Like, they are literally there to haunt your Sims. And they do have a multitude of powers as well, so they can mess with your electronics, they can do a good old Wingardium Leviosa on your furniture. And there are numerous ways as well to kill your Sims with cheats in The Sims 2, but I'm not going to go into them because, to be honest, at this point of writing the script was already about 2,000 words. I'm 16 minutes into recording and I have not put this effort into my master's thesis yet, so I really need to just like refine what I'm putting my effort into, you know? So let's move on to the best game of all time in my humble old opinion, The Sims 3. The Sims 3 base game, it came with all the basic deaths like drowning, execution, fire, old age, everything like that. There wasn't that many extra deaths, and the expansions and store content are really what brought in all of the exciting deaths. And I'm not going to mention them all in detail because there is an additional 19 ways to die, so I'm going to pick out the most prominent or my favourites. So with The Sims 3 World Adventures, you can fight a mummy, and I literally mean like an Egyptian mummy, not someone who's gave birth to you, because someone who's gave birth to you is a mummy. Fight me. So if you lose this fight with the mummy, they'll curse you, and if you don't get it sorted, then you could die within 14 days. To be honest, it's quite reminiscent of the Ring, apart from the mummy's more generous and it gives you 14 days to die instead of 7. How considerate. And The Sims 3 Ambitions introduced meteors, which is one of my favourite ways to die and something I missed dearly with The Sims 4. And meteors could literally wipe out an entire school, and this is what always keeps this death in my head. Just this one Reddit post of this person freaking out because they sent the Sims to school and a meteor hit the school and all of the Sims in the school died. This could never happen on The Sims 4. So just as a warning, if you're playing The Sims 3 and you get a notification about a dark sky, you better not nail. I'm a good Catholic girl. You better bail on that situation 100% to save your game, because death is coming. Similarly to being crushed by a satellite in The Sims 2, another death that I didn't really know about was death by jelly bean, which was introduced in The Sims 3 Supernatural with the jelly bean tree. And eating a jelly bean from this tree gives you a 1% chance of death, and turns out I was at 1%. Unknowingly, I sent my Sim to go get a jelly bean. Like, oh, have a nice treat. It's the weekend. Dead. I would just like you to give me and my Sim some privacy during this difficult time. And then with The Sims 3 Island Paradise, we got Island Paradise themed deaths, so you could die while scuba diving, either by running out of air, which is a pretty obvious one, or B, being eaten by a shark. And I'm mentioning this one because when you get ate by a shark, you get remains left, and they're literally your ribs. That's pretty dark, isn't it, for a Sims game? But the coolest one, in my opinion, is death by time anomaly. This was introduced with The Sims 3 Into the Future pack. So if you enter through time, you might get a moodlet, which basically tells you you've entered a paradox. And if this isn't addressed and not solved, and you just leave it to fester, then this moodlet will change into the blinking in and out of existence moodlet, and then even worse, the next day it'll change into the do I even exist moodlet. And it kind of reminds me of Back to the Future. Well, I guess like I'm really seeing the similarities now. I didn't really when I was writing this script, but obviously like Back to the Future and Into the Future, there's going to be some similarities there, but it's basically that film, but without your mum trying to fancy you. Then other ways to die obviously include the infamous being eaten by a cowplant, losing a guitar challenge against death, dying of thirst as a vampire, dying from old age as a pet, failing at magician's tricks, having the haunting curse backfire on you, being turned into a gold statue with the Philosopher's Stone, that one's kind of cool, I'm not gonna lie, freezing to death, failing to open up a Murphy bed, that one's quite a common theme in The Sims. A Murphy bed is the beds that you can pull out from the wall. Ranting too much, I'm surprised I'm not dead yet. Even though the base game was a little bit lackluster in terms of deaths, they definitely brought it with the expansions. Not that I ever got to experience any. I think when The Sims 3 was out, I think I had maximum like 3 or 4 packs. If your Sims die in The Sims 3, the Grim Reaper will still come, but there's no option to plead for your Sim's life unless you have a chess set available and your Sim that's alive has a high enough logic skill to be able to battle death. And I genuinely did not know this. I genuinely thought that you could still plead with death in The Sims 3, and I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of disappointing because I loved that aspect of the Grim Reaper. But maybe Death was just going through an emo phase in The Sims 3, or to be honest, more likely Death might have been told off by his bosses because his one job is to bring back dead Sims, and he was like basically, just give it a go, see if you can survive. And maybe his boss just put his foot down in The Sims 3 and was like, nah, do your job. In some instances though, he does show mercy. Like if your Sim has the unlucky trait, and I absolutely love this fact, with the unlucky trait, if you die prematurely, meaning like from anything other than old age, Death won't accept it and he'll be like, no, you're being too predictable, like get back out there, give it another go. So I had to mention that one because that's honestly quite hilarious. I'm not laughing, but like I do find it funny inside. So even though there's no real way to lead with death, there is still a lot of ways to counteract it. One way is by obtaining the death flower. This is something seen in The Sims 3 and The Sims 4. If this is in your Sim's inventory when they die, they will offer it up to Death, and Death will be like, oh my god, this is for me, and he'll be so flattered that he'll just be like, nah, you know what, it's alright, you don't have to die today. And you can also make ambrosia. This is a food, but it takes a lot to get all of the ingredients, and the meal basically can reverse aging. If you have this, then it will reverse the effects of death if your Sims eat it. And there are also some repetitions from earlier games, like being restored by a genie or being resurrected as a zombie by a witch. If all else fails and your Sim is a ghost, don't despair. Ghosts are pretty similar to The Sims 2 in that they have a different colour for how they died, but they received one massive improvement, kind of. It's not necessarily just directly relating to ghosts, but graveyards are a thing in The Sims 3, and I love this. I absolutely love graveyards, but that might just be my emo self coming back out. There's literally places in the game just for dead Sims, just dedicated to them. And what's even cooler is they're not even restricted just to these graveyards. Your Sims can No, your ghosts, that's the one. Your ghost can actually leave the graveyard and go and haunt different houses, but this will only really happen if the ghost knows someone in the household. So, you know, if you've wronged a ghost, they'll probably come visit you. And then from this we move on to The Sims 4, which again, the basics like starvation, hunger, fire, old age, they're all there, even though it's much more difficult to die from a fire in The Sims 4 because it's on peace mode, even though there's no fire department. But there is also new ones with the base game, and they are pretty cool, but they are also tied to the main selling point of The Sims 4, which is emotions. I've never been really sold on emotions, I'm not gonna lie. So if your Sims are embarrassed enough and they're absolutely mortified, your Sims are dramatic enough to take the term I died from embarrassment literally, and they will literally die. If your Sims are also the type to like rage quit on games and they anger a lot, or if they're just really, really angry, they have a chance from dying from rage and the heart stops because they're so fuming. This actually happened to me with Gracie's story, I think. One of my Sims just died from anger when she found out that her husband had cheated on her, so good times. And overexertion is another way you can die. I think this one's restricted to elders, so if you make your elder Sim work out too much, then they can die. Working out also extends to doing the old razzle and dazzle, the old woohoo, so your old Sims can literally woohoo to death. And the expansions also brought out new ways to die, and I'm not going to cover them all because they're the basic ones like vampires dying from thirst, or standing out in the heat too long, or standing out in the cold too long, being struck by lightning, pets by old. Well, I basically just said them all there. There you go, and there's your information. But there's also more fun ways to die, like being hit by a poison dart in Jungle Adventure, using a sauna, rabid rodent fever, which is similar to the guinea pig disease in The Sims 1, being given a flower arrangement with the death flower that we've seen in The Sims 3, and being attacked by the mother plant. And I'm not gonna lie, like I never finished off the Sims 4 Strangeville series, and I really expected Bella Goth to be the mother, and it's actually just a plant, so That's a missed opportunity. But anyway, my favourite random way to die is actually included in The Sims 4 City Living, and that's death by a low quality pufferfish. And I love this so much because it reminds me of that one episode of The Simpsons where Homer spends the entire time thinking he's going to die because he's ate some bad fish. I love it. Like, that's my favourite Simpsons episodes, apart from the Halloween ones and the Christmas ones. Can you tell I'm ready to be festive yet? And The Sims 4 Realm of Magic does also include a new way to die, and that's basically from being overexerted or overwhelmed by your magic. And obviously, I can't say anything on that one because we haven't even got the pack yet. And Death returns again in The Sims 4. He's there, he's present, and he's got some massive improvements from The Sims 3. There's now so many more ways to plead with death, and again, I'm a bit iffy on this one because it's tied in with emotions, and emotions aren't my friend. Can't control my own. I don't want to play them in The Sims 4. I think in this instance though, I think they are a help rather than a hindrance. I think they make the game more fun. So if you're happy, you can just do a plain old normal plead with him. If you're confident, you have a higher chance of death accepting your offer. If you're flirty, you can just go in with your best smile and try and seduce him, but this probably won't work because death does not like flirting. Oh my god, there is actually the trait flirt with death, isn't there? Well, maybe you should like it then. And if you're angry and just go in all guns a-blazing like,
Oh my god, why have you killed my wife?
he will 100% reject that. Don't go in angry with death because death isn't here to like listen to your problems. He's just here to do his job. Leave him alone. He did not choose the customer service life. But if you're sad, you can go in with the good old wail. This one has a 30% chance of working, so it's not that bad. But honestly, just go with the confident one because the confident plead has about a 40% success rate. Once your Sims die, obviously they turn into a ghost or not. This one was kind of a sticky topic in The Sims 4 because they weren't originally included with The Sims 4 base game. This was a major oversight. They should have just released later, and it's always been a staple in the games. Ghosts been there from The Sims 1, but they did come soon after, which is why I think they should have just released later. And they do have different colours, but instead of it being dependent upon how they died, it's dependent upon their emotional state. So sick of emotions. Emotions were really pushed with The Sims 4, and now they're just kind of forgot. If you're gonna do something, do it 100% or not at all. And ghosts can become playable characters in your household, which is pretty cool, and depending on how they died, they do have their own special abilities. For example, a ghost who died with fire has the ability to start fires, or a ghost who died from embarrassment will be able to make people around them feel embarrassed. So that's everything. This is honestly the longest video I've recorded in the entire history of series, so I really hope you enjoyed it. This was a highly requested video, and I just want to give a little shout out because Scott, my best friend, actually requested this video, so thanks for the recommendation, Scott.
You good Catholic girl.
Scott is a man who works in a bank, and he shamelessly uses my good Catholic girl mug in his workplace. Bless thee, my child. And also, just as a side note, my friend Scott is gay and Catholic, so it kind of ties in. I got a comment on Twitter, and it was a nice comment. It was basically just agreeing with someone who said I was an LGBT ally. And they're like, yeah, I was a bit worried when I found out you were Christian. I am 100% in support of the LGBTQ plus community. I can never say it properly. And if you're part of that community, you will receive nothing but love and support from me. Like, you're completely safe on my channel. And if anyone's worried about the whole Catholic thing, the cross, literally, Jesus is blue tacked on. I'm not that serious. So anyway, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. I think this was my favourite entire history of video so far. I think you can tell by how enthusiastic I was, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.